I think we have an interesting session for people to think about as they think about managing their businesses, their organizations. I mean, yes, this is focused on MSPs, but a lot of these lessons are valid for other businesses, other organizations, nonprofits, other groups that you're working in or participating in. Okay. All right. Let us go. Larry, if you would please jump to the next slide. Welcome, 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 everybody. There's a place you can clip the start of the recording. Hello, my name is Steve Kazan. I am on the board of the National Society of IT Service Providers, your NSITSP. Our goal in life, our purpose, our mission is to make the MSP profession more professional. And we've got almost, I guess, over 1,000 members now. And we put on a regular set of webinars. And this webinar in particular is focused on kind of business issues and instruction for our members and for managed service providers. So we are grateful to have Larry Mandelberg here presenting us his knowledge, learnings, experience, sharing those things with us. And I think it's going to be really interesting. So looking forward to it. Couple of logistics before we get rolling. Please utilize the webinar chat, the Zoom chat function in your menu. Ask your questions, please, via the chat. Please feel free to ask questions as we go. So no need to wait until the end. We can try to address those questions as they come up, or if it makes more sense, we will scoop them all up or scoop some of them up and make sure we address them all at the end. If we get swamped with questions, which has happened, we will document those and send you an FAQ. We will be sending out the recording link and a copy of the slides. So yes, please feel free to take notes. But you will get a copy of that. We kind of ask that you don't, share this set of slides, outside, your own personal use. It is an asset and a valuable asset to our membership. And so we want to make sure that our members are getting good value for their subscriptions, and we'll give you the hard sell on subscribing. I think everybody's on mute, so we should be good there. And if you have any questions about a topic or an acronym, please feel free. Larry, if we could jump to the next slide. All right, so here's the agenda very quickly. Larry will walk you through the presentation. And then, as I said, we'll have a couple of topics to wrap up towards the end. We'll take a minute or two to do that. So next slide, please. All right, so we have to thank our sponsors, as we always do. These are the folks that help pay for the logistics of running a large organization. So we're grateful for them and grateful for their support and grateful for their renewals. If their support is in cash, that's great. If their support is in kind, that's great too. If you know of any organizations that want to further the development and stability and professionalism of the MSSP channel, by all means, those would be great folks for us to get in contact with. So please let us know. So thanks to all our sponsors. Next slide, please. And I think this might be where we hand it off. So with that, I will say, Larry, welcome. Thank you. And take the mic.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate it. Just for the record, either my mouse is sticky or my computer is sticky, because I was trying to advance those slides in anticipation and it wasn't happening. But I'm really glad to have every one of you here. I don't like to dwell too much on this about me. This information comes from 23 years of primary research into why businesses fail. The rest of this stuff basically is self-bragging, and you can read this when you get the slides. I am a wine geek and an art geek, and I am very proud that I've been married to the same woman for 42 years. So I'll leave this there. I want to dive right in. You may remember that this presentation is called the 3 Imperatives for MSP Generational Survival. I like the reality that evokes survival through multiple generations. But I don't like the fact that it doesn't talk about success, because survival without success is not very fulfilling. So I've taken the liberty of using the phrase 3 imperatives for MSP generational success. I want you to survive, I want you to thrive, and I want you to have ongoing success. And in order to do that, I'm going to need you to think big. I need you to think about the future. I need to think about your organization and what you're going to do with it when you're done doing what you're doing today. Do you want to keep running it until you drop dead? None of us do. We want to live life. We want to enjoy ourselves, even though we love our business. You've really only got 3 options. In 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, whenever, when you're done, you're either going to close it down, you're going to sell it, or you're going to transition it to another group of leaders who's going to carry that legacy forward for you. And the beauty of that is that it gives you an ongoing annuity of value. If you're building an asset, that's the best outcome you can hope for. And that's where I want you thinking. I want you to be thinking about that long-term future. Think big. And what I want to do today, what we're going to do is we're going to touch on the why, the what, and the how. So the what are the 3 imperatives. The how is a little tricky because it's different for everybody. So I'm going to give you some tidbits, some insights, some guidance. I'm going to kind of point you in the right direction and show you where some tools are to get some more of the nuts and bolts of the how. But what we're going to focus on today is the why. Why does it matter? Why do you care? And most importantly, why are these the 3 imperatives? Why are these 3 things critical? And again, I want to say that 23 years of research has identified these. This is not my intellectual capital. This is my research. This is data from a statistically valid sample. So I want you to answer a question for me, and I want you to put it in the chat. Have you ever lost a customer? Have you ever lost a prospect? What I want you to put in the chat is either customer or prospect and why. I lost a customer once because I took a support tech away. I said, he's not going to serve you anymore. I'm going to give you a new person. And they said, you didn't ask me, you didn't tell me, and I'm firing you. I'm not training a new person. I've lost prospects for reasons too. I want you to go into that chat and just literally either the word customer or the word prospect and why. And if you don't know why, say, don't know. But that's what I want. I want you to think about that. And the reason I want you to think about that is because you've got to come to an understanding about something that I call the eternal business conflict. This started a short while ago when the first caveman bartered with the caveman in the next cave over for something he wanted and didn't have. And that was the first business transaction that took place. And over the years, what we've noticed is that business transactions have gotten more and more and more and more complex. And as business owners, I can speak for you. I'm speaking for me. I've owned a bunch of businesses, more than a dozen businesses, including 3 IT firms. So I've had a business that does what you guys do, only we did it in the 90s. It wasn't called MSP then, but we were still the same thing. I always want things to stay the same. I don't want my customers to change. I don't want their demands to change. I don't want my staff to change. I don't want the technology to change. I don't want to have to learn new. I want the same thing. I want stability. I want dependability. The problem is the world says, no, you don't get that. I'm going to change. And I'm not just going to change, but I'm going to change faster every day. And here's the really frustrating part. As MSPs, you are facilitating the increased pace of change that you're suffering from. You
Yeah.
have a unique problem. You're creating this problem faster than any other business on the planet. And if you don't get your arms around this, you're going to be in very serious trouble. And what does this mean to you? Here's what it means. It means that a business that isn't growing is a business that's dying. There is no stasis. It does not exist. Okay. And growth doesn't mean necessarily employees or customers, although it could. It doesn't necessarily mean revenue or profits, although it could. What about products? What about services? What about insurance? What about geographic reach? There's many ways to grow, and there's one that people always forget about. As we age, don't we grow in experience? Don't we grow in wisdom? If you and your team are not growing in some way, if your organization isn't growing in some way, even if it's as simple as broadening and deepening your level of experience, at least you're growing. If you're not doing that, you're dying. And the question is not whether your business is going to have to change, right? I don't want new things. I don't want to change. That's not the question. The question is, what's it going to be? When am I going to have to deal with it? And how much time do I have? Because I guarantee you, you can't stop this. Now, I'm not going to read every one of these slides. We're going to go fast because I have a lot. And my goal here is to convince you, number one, that growth is not good. It's non-optional. It's absolutely mandatory if you want to create an asset that has worth. If you want to collect a check, if you want to be paid like an employee, then don't read Gerber's book, The E-Myth, and just run your business. When you're done, shut it down. If you want to build an asset, this stuff is non-optional, okay? So one of the first things that's important to understand is that, how do I know when change has to happen? Well, one of them is when you start finding problems that you keep trying to fix and you can't fix them, they keep coming back. I'm going to try this. Oh, that didn't work. I'm going to try this. Oh, that didn't work. What you're doing is you're not attacking the problem. You're attacking the symptom. I call it whack-a-mole. You've got to stop playing whack-a-mole. And when you see your organization playing whack-a-mole, you know you've got to make some structural changes. The other major red flag is we've been doing it this way forever. Why did this cost us a customer? Why did this cost us a prospect? Now, with that, Steve, if you see anything in the chat that looks particularly interesting to you, do me a favor, flag it for me. The other one is there are times when it's good to change. Most people don't like change, and that's okay. But there's times when it's good to change, and when you or your staff start resisting change that you know is in your best interest, it's time to implement formal change management processes, which is another way of saying change is inevitable. Let's make it work. Let's make it work for us. Okay. So here's the way change works. And this is a little insidious. And I talk about this a lot in podcasts, and I use this a lot with some of my clients. I work with leadership teams. I don't work with staff, but I do presentations to staff. And this is typically how it goes. You're all upset because there's been rules put in place and you no longer have the flexibility you feel like you used to have. You feel like you're not being trusted. You feel like you're not being respected. You feel like you're having authority taken away from you. Well, let me explain to you the way this process works. The way success works is it starts with an idea. The idea is implemented, and when it works, it creates growth. That growth causes complexity, right? You can't handle 10 employees the way you handle 3. You can't handle 30 customers the way you handle 10. It creates complexity. And in order to continue to deliver quality and dependability, you have to put controls in place to make sure those things that need to happen. That creates a loss of flexibility. And that's what you're suffering right now. You have done such a good job of helping this company grow and be so successful that you're losing some flexibility. So here's what I say to you. If you don't like these rules that are being put in, if you feel like you're not being trusted, quit. Go find another company. Go find another company that was where we were when you came on board and help them get to where we are now. But then you're going to have to quit again. Otherwise, shut up, get on board, and help us get to the next level, because it only gets better from here. This is your fault. You created this success. You created this loss of flexibility. You got to understand how success works. People are scared by this, but it's nothing to be afraid of. It's a good thing. It's a path towards building an asset.
So speaking of being scared, Ron's got a question about client employees who feel threatened. So yes, you want to grow your MSP, but you have to deal with a client who doesn't necessarily feel comfortable about that change that you're bringing to your client's business.
That's a
So,
real great question. When you learn how to manage change on your end, you'll learn how to manage change for your client. And there is a dichotomous situation here. You're either going to get people to say, I want to be on board, or you're going to get people to say, I don't want to be on board. And this is part of the first imperative. We'll get to this in just a sec. But that is, you've got to know who your market is. And you don't want customers that are going to fight you. So when it gets to the point where it's either or, you've got to say to them, I can't serve you anymore. I cannot deliver the valuable quality that I need to you in order to keep you safe and protected so your business can be successful. Thank you. It's been a wonderful relationship. You can't be afraid to say that. It's like walking out of the car dealership saying, too much, I'll buy something somewhere else, and hoping that the salesman chases after you. You got to trust if they love you, they'll succumb. But you can't do that until you learn change management. And we've done a webinar on this before, so you can go back and do some looking. Okay, here we go. Imperative number one, part two, imperative number one. This is, to me, I love this about technology. We always start counting with zero. So 3 is always fourth, right? So we're doing that here. Part two is imperative one. Imperative number one is clarity of purpose. You have to have clarity of purpose. Now, what I'm going to do on each of these 3 imperatives is I'm going to tell you what they mean, why they're a problem, right? How not having them is a problem, some of the benefits, why they're hard to do, how to do it, and then it's what I call make it real. I'm going to go through each of those for each of these 3 imperatives. So when I say clarity of purpose, people always say, well, we know who we do. We know why we exist. No, you don't. Most people don't. And the reason I know that is if you asked every one of your employees what your purpose is or what value you offer, if you have 23 employees, you're going to get 23 answers. That's not consistent clarity of purpose throughout your organization. This is organization-wide. Everybody has to understand the value, not the product or the service, the value. Why is it valuable? And who is it valuable to? This speaks to the customer who won't go on with the change. I can't help you if you don't want to help yourself. And you have to have everybody on the same page. And this allows you to design your culture, proactively design your culture, not reactively design your culture. So here's the problem with not having clarity of purpose. You don't have common goals. Cooperation, collaboration, doesn't matter. It's who can do the best job. The superstars stand out. And the primary focus is just staying in business. We got to make another sale so we can stay in business. You're not thinking about the future. You got to think about the future. Why are there benefits? What are some of the benefits? Well, I want to focus on this is all in the book. So don't stress out about notes because everything I'm giving you is in the book in one way or another. But I want to highlight retention, productivity, and collaboration on the left. When you can say, this is why we exist, this is the value we deliver, and this is how we deliver it, and this is who we deliver it to, this is who it's for, The people that want to do what you're doing will ask, I want to be part of your organization. And it will help you in marketing on the other side. It will help you under business development, because you can say to clients, we exist for this market and we exist to deliver this value, not the product, not the service. Forget that. That's a commodity. What's the value? What's the emotional connection, right? And they will say, I want to work with a vendor who wants to do that for people like me. And it also helps with decision making. It makes it black and white. Does this move us towards our long-term goal? Does this serve our clients? Does this add to our value? And because of this, it's easy to say we have to change in order to continue to serve our clients, in order to continue to provide that value. So it creates some change tolerance. It's hard because it's hard to identify, it's hard to document, it's hard to put into words. And I'm just going to tell you, it doesn't count if it isn't in writing, and if it isn't shared with the appropriate people at the appropriate time, and if it isn't honored and followed by leadership. How many companies do you know that have stated values that are nothing more than a plaque on a wall? Nobody follows them, nobody knows them, nobody lives them. The other reason it's hard is because it's hard to say no to opportunities that aren't aligned with what your purpose is. Like that client who said, I'm scared, I don't want to do it. You're just taking yourself out of our target market. We can't serve you. And it's hard because if you're making money, why would you change? It's hard. Here's how you do it. You got to put your desires in writing. You've got to define why you exist. You've got to explain your purpose by giving people stories. It's like the story I told you about the employees. Quit. That rebellion, by the way, 2 hours after I walked out of the building, telling 33 people to go find another job or shut up. The two leaders went to the CEO actually and said, I'm sorry, no more, you will have no more grief from us. And it's important that you live up to your commitments. It's important when you say, this is the value we deliver, deliver it. It's important that you say, this is who we serve, don't serve other people. When you make decisions, make those decisions that are aligned with this purpose. It's hard. And the way you make it real is that people have to be emotionally involved with it. It's like I said at the beginning, if you're clear about who you want to serve and why and your long-term goals, people will say, I want to be part of that, right? So if you want to say, I want to be the organization that turns technology from a cost center for our clients to a revenue center for our clients, that's the value we bring you as an MSP. And we do it at a reduced cost and greater effectiveness. And when you make decisions, people need to understand that those decisions are driven by why you exist, by your purpose, by who you serve, how you serve them, that value, etc. And the culture needs to reflect that. It's really important. Okay, imperative number 2. Are you ready? If there's any urgent questions, Steve, please cut me off. Anything I need to talk
one
to?
thing I was going to say is the clarity of purpose.
Mhm.
The NSITSP spent a lot of time determining its clarity of purpose, right? So I guess we drink our own champagne and try to manage ourselves to the best practices of organizational management.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Consistent performance. The second operational imperative is you have to be able to deliver consistent performance. Think McDonald's. You go order a Big Mac and they bring it to you in a quarter pounder box or a quarter pounder wrapper. You don't even have to read it. If you're a McDonald's customer, you just see it coming towards you and you know the color's wrong. And you say, wait a minute, I didn't order that. They say, no, we ran out of packaging. We're using this. It's your Big Mac, right? That's consistency. For God's sake, McDonald's has a university to teach people how to make hamburgers. Think about it. That's what we're talking about. And it's about plan, plan, plan. You know, real estate, location, location, location. Have a plan. Understand the plan. Everybody needs to understand Everybody needs to execute the plan as appropriate. Consistent performance means you serve the people who need you. You don't go scrounging for people with money who will pay you. You look for people who need you. That's how you create loyal customers. That's how you create profitability. That's how you create economies of scale so you can create consistent performance. And lastly, everybody has to know their role and fulfill it. Okay? Here's the problem. The problem is that if you don't have consistent performance, you can't create and meet expectations. People don't know what their roles are. People don't know what they're responsible for. And here's the really insidious one. And this is kind of an interesting one for most people that comes through at a certain stage of growth where you transition from what's called go-go to adolescence. When you start, all you want is more. Give me more. I need more, more. If I can have more, more is better. More customers, more revenue, more sales, more profits. More is better. More, more, more. Get to a point where you get so scattered as an organization that what you need to do is stop doing more of everything and do everything you're doing better. And suddenly doing it better gets you more. It gets you more time because you're not wasting time on people that aren't your target market. It saves you money because you're not wasting money chasing customers that aren't going to be good customers or fit your model, because you're not looking for people who aren't going to pay you in a timely manner, or who have obstacles that they need you to hurdle for them so they can buy from you. This is important. Remember, there's a moment in time when your business has to shift from being more to focusing on better. Okay, so let's talk about some of the benefits. This is a big one. Think about this. Having everybody aligned, having clarity about their resources, having balanced workloads, understanding responsibility and authority, right? Having accountability. And I go into detail in all of these in the book. We don't have time for that here. But if you can create consistent levels of performance, these are the benefits you will reap. Don't get confused. It's not you do these things to get consistent performance. You do other things to get consistent performance, and we're going to get to that. And then you get these benefits. And here's why it's hard. Remember I talked about the eternal business conflict? The world's constantly changing. How are you supposed to follow any plan in a changing environment? How are you supposed to stay focused and on track? And one of the other things that I am a big proponent of is diversity. I believe deeply that the more diverse an organization, the better off it is. When I wrote my book, I belonged to a born-again Christian critique group. I am a Jew. They had no business expertise. What they brought me was grammar, language, sentence flow, but they also asked me questions about what I was writing. And it was like, oh my God, I can't believe people don't understand this. I need to write it differently. So they brought a perspective that on a normal day I wouldn't care about, but it was so valuable to me in writing the book. Same with your organization. The more diversity you can get, the more different backgrounds, perspectives, cultures, races, religions, ethnicities you can bring into your organization and find common ground to work towards a common purpose, the better your organization will be, because you'll have a broader view of the world you're operating in. And that's a form of growth, isn't it? See, growth doesn't have to be bad, and it doesn't have to be scary. Here's how you do it. Plans. You make plans. You execute plans. You do operational plans, you do marketing plans, and you do sales plans. And you make sure people, every employee has a meaningful role. Don't ask people to take out the trash. Ask people to keep the office clean. It's not about tasks, it's about roles. Make sure they understand their role, make sure they understand what it is, make sure they're able to do it, and make sure it's done. That's how you create consistent performance. It's all rooted to plans. And you make it real, as I said here, right? Roles, not tasks. Make sure you delegate when it's appropriate. Now we have a whole nother track on delegation, which I'm not going to get into. I got a process for doing that. Most people learn how to delegate by watching their parents. That's not a good way to delegate, but there's a way to do it right. And yeah, it takes time, but if you do it right, it gives you time because you only have to do it once. And then that task is off somebody else's shoulders. And I could go on for 30 minutes about delegation, but I'm not going to. And Steve, again, if there's any good questions, don't hesitate to flag me or cut me off.
Yeah, I will do that. And this is great. Keep going. You're on a roll.
So make sure your workloads are realistic and balanced. It's what it says here, right? What's the key? The key is the last one, not the first one. And it's not the first part of the last one. It's the last part of the last one. You have to reinforce good behavior and penalize bad behavior. You can't let bad behavior, people who aren't doing their job, go unpenalized. And you can't let people doing their job go unrewarded. And this is what we call the capstone of classic change management. It's the fifth step of effective change management. It's called reinforcement. And it's where there's a third of the people that are vocal resistors, a third of the people that are vocal supporters, and a third of the people that are silent resistors. What you want to do is you want to talk to the vocal supporters, ignore the vocal resistors. Yeah, I understand you don't like this. Yeah, I understand it makes you mad. Yeah, I understand. I get the problem. Now, here's what we're going to do, and here's why it's good. And you ignore those vocal resistors. You focus on the vocal supporters. The silent resistors will hear the good. You reinforce the behavior of the vocal supporters, and you'll win over 2/3 of the organization. Okay, third one. We're doing good. We're going to probably be on time. All right.
Yay.
People engagement. I call engagement the holy grail of human resource or human capital management. People don't usually know what it means. People don't have a common description or definition. Like people don't have a common definition for a mission statement or a purpose statement or a value statement or a vision statement. I don't want to worry about that. I define all that stuff in the book, and I define it for me and my customers, my market. You can call it anything you want. I want you to understand what it means. It means working with each other and working with clients towards common goals. You both have common goals. If you aren't operating together collaboratively with both your vendors and your clients, all your primary stakeholders towards each other's common goals, I'm helping you achieve yours, you're helping me achieve mine, you're not engaged. You don't understand what's important. You don't understand why you're valuable. You don't understand how important you are to achieving the purpose. This is how you get connected to the purpose, by getting people engaged. And when you do that, they have a sense of ownership, they have a shared sense of purpose, and they have a sense of control. They feel like their voices are heard, right? Here's why it's tough. Getting people to feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves requires a vision that people can be attracted to. One of my favorite visions is that we're trying to change the way we're trying to change the way education works in this country. Now, I'm simplifying. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but think about this for just a second. If you are someone who is frustrated with the educational system in this country, you're going to say, whoa, I like that. There's a company who's dedicated to improving the educational system in this country. I want to know more. Maybe I can work with them. Maybe they can work with me. Maybe I should engage with them. Maybe I should work for them. This is the key to purpose. You've got to help people feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. Because if they aren't engaged, they won't care. If they don't care, they won't communicate. And if they don't communicate, you lose touch with your customer. As time passes and the world changes, remember I said if you're not growing, your customers, the environment they're in is changing. As that environment changes and the world changes, the value of your products and services shifts. If it's aligned with the new changes, great. But most of the time, your products and services are pretty focused on the moment and the current need. And when those needs shift, the value of those products and services just diminishes a little teeny bit. And the more they change, the less value they have. And if you aren't clear on where your customers are going and their industry is going, you can't be proactive in understanding how to help them in their industry. And this is another form of MSP growth, specialization in industries. Don't just be a technology service provider, be a co-strategist. Be part of their advisory team, like their lawyer and their accountant, and help them understand how to use technology strategically, right? Don't be afraid to say, don't spend money on this. You can't get a good return on investment. Develop a relationship with that customer. They'll help you continue to be of value to them. Benefits, connection, teamwork. When people are engaged, you have this beautiful opportunity to identify best practices and share them. And it creates conduits and connectors. It creates points of information, access, and distribution where you can get messaging out and collect messaging from the outside world and pass messaging through your organization. Again, you create engagement and you get this benefit. You don't create the benefit and then get engagement.
All right. So quick question from Preston, which I think is right on topic, is someone perceives you and your company as a break fix value, company. How do you move yourself up those levels to be the strategic, the co-strategist job that you've just defined?
What you do is there's 40 ways, but let me give you one. This comes from my days when I had an IT firm. I would call my client and I would say, would you mind if we did a financial benefits analysis on your organization? I want to talk to you about the cost of the technology you're using and how and where it's saving you money, because I don't think you understand how much of a return you're getting. And if we can understand the return you're getting on your investments in technology, maybe we can find ways to either lower those costs or increase those returns. And then once you get that buy-in and you're not charging them for it, now you've got to understand their strategy. You've got to understand their future plans. You've got to understand where they're going. And you suddenly open the door to being able to become a strategic advisor. It's really pretty simple. And it's a great question. Okay. So it's hard because everybody needs to understand how everything works and how they fit in. Because if they don't, they won't feel like they're adding value. And that feels like a burden. I want everybody in your organization to understand how their work product gets to them and what happens after they do their work product. So let's just talk about the techs in the field. I don't want them to just get a service ticket. I want them to understand how that service ticket is created and why, and what the customer is told, and the expectations the customer are given about that service ticket, and where those expectations came from, so that when the service guy goes out there and the ticket isn't accurate, he can explain to the customer why it's hurting the customer instead of being pissed off about it. And I want him to understand, that tech, that service person, to understand what happens when he closes that service ticket out in the organization, because he's done, he's on to the next service ticket. He needs to understand what happens with what he does, so that anytime somebody needs a little shift, a little adjustment, they know who to go to say, when you submit these service tickets, it caused me this problem. If we could just add one little field to this service ticket, I could solve a bunch of problems. Can we do that? Let's talk about it. So it's about making everybody feel like they're important, have value, and the risk is bureaucracy. You do it by creating a shared understanding, ensuring communications are happening, and being transparent with your leadership. When you make decisions, people have to not know the decision, they have to know the decision and how it's aligned with your purpose and how it fits into the operations of the company. You have to be transparent. And you make it real by forcing staff interaction with others outside their area, constantly reinforcing what the purpose and the value is. And here's the big one: create opportunities to learn. And I don't mean technology. I used to have a training budget. One of my techs said, "Can I use it for anything?" I said, "Anything. You just have to bring the knowledge to us." He said, "Anything?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Can I use it for a Julia Child cooking class?" I said, "Hey, that's learning. That's fine with me. Anything you want. You have to stimulate continuous learning." This is the image of all of what I've been talking about. Here's why organizations fail: lack of clarity of purpose, lack of consistency of performance, lack of engagement of people. As you mature, you begin with narrow and shallow experience, you go to narrow and deep experience, and then you get to broad and deep experience. And it's stages. It's not complicated, but it's not easy. Okay. Here is, oh, what happened to my part 5? Part 5 didn't show up. We lost, we're in part 5, the assessment. So here's the homecoming. So we're creeping up, I think, on quarter to the hour, right, Steve? So
Yep.
we're gonna be able to get to Q&A here in a minute.
Great.
In order to make this meaningful, in order to make this work for me and my clients, understanding this research. So I created a hypothesis. I built a construct, and I ran the hypothesis through the construct and came out with a theory. Then I was 23 years, and then I did 6 years of proof of concept. That's where this came from. And yeah, there's some intellectual capital in there, but most of it is a research and practical experience. So in order to help my clients, I had to figure out how to determine where they were in this continuum of learning and growth and organizational maturity: narrow experience, shallow experience, narrow, broad, etc. So I identified 8 indicators that uniquely identify the level of maturity in each of the stages of maturity. We didn't talk about maturity. It's not important. It's evolutionary growth leading towards the ability to create successful, profitable growth and maintain it. And that's where these 3 imperatives came out of. The first was in youth, the second is adolescence, and the third is adulthood. So there's a 10-minute survey online, multiple choice, fairly simple, good to do with the leadership team. I always do it with every client. I have the entire leadership team take it. And what it does is it objectively measures your levels of achieving clarity of purpose, consistency of performance, and engagement of people using leading non-financial indicators. Now, that's a bunch of gobbledygook. It's not important. Here's what's important. What it does is very, very quickly and very, very accurately, it gives you all 8 sustainability indicators that are directly connected to these imperatives in order from weakest to strongest. So you know where you need to start working on improving your organization to create sustainability and long-term success. I'm not going to repeat that. It's right there in front of you. It creates objective data that you and your team can agree on and work together to improve and focus on one thing at a time. It's a way to focus everyone's efforts on the single most productive imperative. And what I always tell people is the first time you do it, pick one of the top 3, not number 1, because sometimes cash flow is an issue. And sometimes one of those if cash flow is an issue, one of those top 3 will be directly related to cash flow. If it's number 3, you do number 3 first. Then you reassess, right? So it's not always number 1, but at least you'll know your weakest. You can only find the link to this survey in chapter 12, which is called On Becoming an Outstanding Organization, or we need some sound effects, Steve. We need a drum roll.
Some fireworks going off.
It is online, and I don't share this with anybody except people who buy the book or pay for a webinar. So you guys are this is your value add. So please do not share this with anybody. It is your value add. You will have it. You don't need to write it down. And as I said, everything's in the book, my phone number, email, website, blog. There's a QR code. That's if you want to buy the book directly from me. It's on Amazon. It's easy to find. The link's there. If you do use the QR code, you need to make sure you put your address in when you put your credit card in, because that's the only way I know where to send you the book. Okay? And now we have open forum. I hope we have some questions.
We do have some questions. So from a kind of a tactical perspective, about becoming a co-strategist, I think that term resonated. Are there practices that you can create, like a vCISO practice or a vCIO practice, to add to your services that elevate you up from the break fix level to a more strategic perspective? That's question one. What do you think of that? Question two is, you talked about the financial assessment. Are there other assessments you could do that are more strategic, like a cybersecurity assessment or an AI assessment, or planning sessions around those topics? So kind of two questions, the adding the practice and then, getting into do the assessment.
Well, maybe I'm not understanding clearly, but the answer to the first question is yes.
Okay.
I mean, am I missing something? Make it a product, no charge. There's criteria, there's qualifications. If you meet these qualifications, you have to have this number of desktops or this number of employees or this much something. You got to have a qualification if you're going to give it away for free. You don't want to do it for anybody, right? But yeah, make it a product. Differentiate yourself. In terms of the second question, those ideas are good and they're commodities. I would avoid them. I would avoid AI because I think it's misunderstood. And the last thing you want to do is try and educate your market. You have to do it enough already. Don't add to the burden. Educating your market is a nightmare. It's fraught with frustration and cost and time that's lost. Avoid it at all costs. Cybersecurity, if people are too stupid to understand it, don't waste your time. It's a commodity. Don't fight that battle. Bring it up at the right time. Don't lead with it. Bring up something that's business related, not technology related. If you're trying to get outside of the commodity business, bring something else up. How about this? Have you ever done an analysis on the profitability of your non-field staff? How effective are your non-field staff? How much time are they wasting? How much time are they not wasting? Would you like to know? Is there technology that we could bring to the table that would help without making it burdensome? Or maybe there's some technology we could change or simplify to make it better. I think effectiveness or productivity of your staff in the field is probably a relatively common one, but it doesn't mean it can't be something you offer as well. Because it's common, or because I would assume that it's common, again, I haven't been doing this since the 90s, even though I've been doing it for 50 years. If you're going to do something like that, that's a commodity, you need to price it at or above the median level, and you need to deliver it at or above the median level of quality. So you've got a bigger obstacle to hurdle if you want to do a field productivity assessment of your field staff, right? Does that make sense?
Yep, got it. No, so let's roll back to the background. The profile says 5th generation family business. Question popped up. What was the family business?
Hides and furs. Hides and furs in the 1850s. And it evolved from hides and furs into scrap metal. And then because they were in an agricultural area, it got into scrap agricultural equipment. And then as agricultural equipment started to become automated, they got into the automated components of it. And then once motors started getting involved, they got into the motor part of it. And that evolved into what in the 1980s was an auto parts store and machine shop that was known nationwide and served a 5-state radius from a town of 6,000 people. It was a pretty big deal. We set 3 world records out of that machine shop. We had a
Wow.
joke. If you're going to drop your motor off with tin, you ain't going to get it back. The tin don't come in. It was only the motor, right? You don't leave the oil pan on. We did everything from single cylinder pump motors to 16-cylinder locomotive diesel engines, where the crankshaft was 16, 18 feet long. If it fell on you, you're dead.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So a little clarification around the term education. So I think your point was educating a market on a new technology is like boiling the ocean.
Right.
Educating your client on a business issue that can be solved by a technology should be more standard practice. Am I getting that right?
Yes, and there's a reason for that, and that's because they understand business, and if they don't, they understand they need to understand business. And if you bring that to them, they'll be receptive. Many leaders say, I don't understand technology and I don't want to understand technology, so don't bother trying to teach me, right? So if you connect it to business, not technology, and you change technology from a revenue source to a cost, from a cost center to a revenue source, that's the trick.
Yep, got it.
It's a mindset.
Yeah.
I can give you another example. One of my larger clients, because I don't usually work with big clients, but one of my larger clients was a company called Excel Energy. There are 3 energy companies that serve the bulk of the US market. There's Con Ed on the East Coast, there's PG&E on the West Coast, and from Texas to Minnesota in the Midwest, it's a company called Excel. They were like a Fortune 50 or a Fortune something company, big, huge. They had a 5,000 person customer service department. They had a customer service department that had its own board of directors, CEO, CFO, et cetera, the full gamut, right? We're talking huge money. And that board reported to the corporate board. That board made a strategic decision to transition their customer service department from a cost center to a revenue center. We brought in members from the corporate board, members from the customer service board, and then we brought in 20 staff from all around their market area, from people close to retirement to people who were still in probation on the call center, and talked about what it meant and how we would do it. And it was a radical shift in how they did business that was totally dependent on technology, but it was not about technology. It was about business. So that concept of transitioning cost centers to revenue centers has always fascinated me. And that's always the way I've looked at my technology firms as well.
Got it. Okay. So a few minutes, we need to wrap up here. If we could just hop through the next couple of slides.
Okay. Come on. Hold on. It's sticky. I'm getting it. There we go.
All right. So top lessons learned today. If we had to summarize this all down into, say, 3 things, I guess I would go back to the 3 imperatives and say, make sure you focus on these things. Make sure you have the clarity of your purpose. Make sure that you have the consistency of your processes, and make sure that people understand your mission. So they will do that. So keep going. Next slide. So things to do tomorrow.
Just a minute. There we go.
Right. So folks on the call, think about things that you want to do to change your business, change your process, things you want to try later today or by tomorrow morning. Take what Larry said and make it, actionable. Have conversations with your employees and your clients, change your agendas and your talking points and your topics for your, next client conversations. Think of those things and build those into your day-to-day and then your practices. So moving forward, keep going. All right. So shifting gears down to the public service announcements. We have 2 more sessions scheduled for July and August. And they're somewhat related to what Larry said. One is recruiting, right? If you don't have that vision and that mission, then people you talk to about coming to work for your company are not going to feel that inspiration. They're not going to feel that mission larger than themselves, right? And sign up and be dedicated for that. So we're talking about recruiting in July, and then in August, we're talking about kind of human resource topics, motivation and retention. It's a big topic because there's such a challenge finding and holding on to quality technical people. So those are the next 2 sessions. Get your calendars out. Mark those dates, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern time for those. We have an all hands meeting coming up as we normally do once a quarter. We'll talk about the badging program that we rolled out the last meeting and the progress we've made on that. And then if you're interested in legislation, every month we have a meeting, and all of these sessions are on the nsitsp.org/events website. So again, get your calendar out and get signed up for those. Larry, next couple of slides, please. So here's some links for the site. So if the folks on this call are not members yet, please feel free to get out your phones, take a picture of that QR code, sign up. Hopefully this session and the rest of the sessions and the membership in the organization will clearly have that value to you into your business. And if you, like the rest of us, feel that our industry needs to be more professional, we'd love to have you along on the ride. So next slide, please. And I think this is probably the last one. Here you go.
After this.
Yeah. So for the recording, we'll send out the link so you won't need to go to the pages to find it. But for future reference, we do have a web page that has the recordings from prior sessions. Larry mentioned the change management session. It was roughly a year ago, but that's listed there and posted there. And so to understand how change impacts you and your business and your employees and your customers, that's actually a great session to spend a little time on. So that's it. That's the last slide. Thank you all for your attendance and participation in the chats. Preston and Keenan and Derek, thank you so much for digging in. Keenan's final point was MSPs are selling peace of mind, and tech is the tool we use to provide it. So that's a nice philosophy. Larry, any final words before we wrap up? Oh, we're actually over 10.
Right, we're right over 10. Thank you for coming. There's a lot of information out there. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Feel free to reach out to me if I can be of any service. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Larry. Thanks, everybody. With that, we will stop the recording and end the session.